Hey, podcast listeners. I'm Chris Morocco, food director of Bon Appétit and Epicurious, and host of the Dinner SOS podcast. Each week on the show, we bring the expertise of the Bon Appétit test kitchen to your kitchen. And this season, we've got a little something for everyone. We're debating whether spring produce is actually worth all the hype, solving your hosting anxieties, and helping you become a better baker with our BA Bake Club episodes on Dinner SOS. I was going to the Chelsea market, to go to the Manhattan Fruit Exchange all the time, the lobster place, and then schlepping everything back. And I was in heaven. Yeah. I was in heaven because for the first time in my culinary career, it felt like I was truly learning about food from the inside out, from the ground up.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rodbard. It was so fun having Chris Morocco in for a wide-ranging conversation about cooking, media, and his nearly 2 decades working at Condé Nast. Chris is the food director of Bon Appétit and Epicurious, overseeing the test kitchen team and the recipes they developed. In this episode, we go back to Chris's early career working at Vogue before landing an assistant job in the BA test kitchen. We go over how he currently leads the culinary team at BA and how they think about seasonality, taste, and getting people to cook more in this rapidly changing world. I am a huge fan of Chris's work, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Chris Morocco, welcome to This Is Taste. Super excited to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
We got a podcast legend in the building here.
Hardly. It's you, not me.
No, Chris, I love what you do at BA. I'm a huge fan of your staff. I'm a huge fan of what BA is up to, and really I have been a fan of watching Dinner SOS evolve, and just really the audio that you're putting out is terrific.
Thank you. I love doing that show, being able to connect with real people, understand who they are in their home kitchens, the decisions they're making, the things they're thinking of or not thinking of. I just love that.
It's a great show. Well, before we get into it, because I got your career, we're going to talk about it. It's really cool. And I got questions. But first, where have you been dining out in New York or otherwise recently?
So I'm full-time in Philly now.
Awesome.
So I eat out mostly in Philly, but in New York, it's funny. I was thinking, wow, gosh, where have I eaten out in New York? My last big meal in New York was at King.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're a fan of Sissing House.
Yeah.
I love Claire DeBoer's cooking.
Yep.
King always just feels special. Every night I've ever spent there feels like a really just intimate, warm, convivial experience. And who else would I trust to cook me rabbit? Nobody.
They execute the dinner party in a restaurant setting like you feel like you're a guest at a party. It's dope. Let's go Philly, though. I want to hear about a beautiful city. I love it.
I recently brought my friend for his birthday to Mon, and it's the restaurant that now occupies the space formerly where Kalaya was located, and it's just Cambodian food, but it's certainly like non-traditional takes, and it's just some of the most flavorful food pound for pound I think I've ever had. We went on a bit of a tear, me and my best friend. Pafudo is a little hole in the wall spot doing kind of Italian daytime cafe menu with dinner pop-ups happening. I go to Royal Izakaya a lot. I did a big dinner out with some new friends at Friday, Saturday, Sunday, not realizing it was a tasting menu format, realizing, we're going to get to know these people really well tonight.
What's that like when the tasting menu drops and you don't quite realize that you're in for it?
But here's the thing. What you notice, so these days, certain restaurants, they'll do a tasting menu format, but there's not that much flexibility around it. You kind of need to know going in, right?
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they were able to accommodate every last-minute request, dietary restriction, and it reminded me of the power of hospitality, right?
Yeah.
The ability to be taken care of in one of these spaces. And that feeling was so powerful that night because it was people we had never eaten out with before. And
new friends.
Really could have gone new friends. It really could have gone sideways very quickly.
Oh, so it was like the scenario was like you picked the restaurant and like come along and it was all of a sudden.
Yes, I did.
We're going to be here for 3 hours.
Yeah. Yep. But you know what? Time flies when you're eating great food.
I love that sentiment. Well, Philly's great. I mean, just like I got to go there recently. It's such a great city. Well, Chris, I wanted to have you in to talk about the work you're doing at BA, but also about your career a bit, because I in researching your past, I mean, I didn't realize some of these. Your LinkedIn is looking pretty interesting to me.
I probably need to update it still further, but
yeah,
go on.
but I think a lot of us know you from the BA Test Kitchen and you're the food director at BA and really being the head of the recipe development. Every issue, every online recipe goes through you. But you didn't start your career in food. You started at Vogue, and you were there for 6 years, from 2004 to 2010. And you know that, like,
Indeed.
6 years at Vogue seems like a career in its own.
Yeah.
What's it like working at Vogue for 6 years in the early 2000s?
Crazy as it sounds, it's something I totally fell into. I had a strong passion for photography coming out of college. I'd done a lot of work in photography just in my senior year as I was kind of wrapping up, my requirements and whatever at Oberlin. And I had an internship at InStyle, and I just made a bunch of connections in media. Was able to get my foot in the door at Vogue, found myself in a totally, like looking back, like a totally inadequate suit interviewing with Anna Wintour.
Really?
Explaining.
Anna does the interview.
Oh, yeah. Anna's the last interview. And by this point, I've met with Grace Coddington. I've met with Phyllis Posnick. I've met with so many different people. Lori Jones, who's the managing editor at the time. I mean, I've never interviewed with more people for a role of any kind, let alone an entry-level one. And Grace Coddington sitting there saying, "Oh, it sounds like you're the right person for the job." And I'm like, what? Makes you think that? But I just think they wanted somebody who was young, energetic, and basically it was a job that was all about helping book talent, like models, hair, makeup, for photo shoots, and doing all the travel and logistics and budget kind of stuff around them. And the thing is, like, the hairstylists and the makeup artists are a huge part of the creative teams for these shoots. So your ability to say when, Julianne Deist or Orlando Pita or, Guerin, Guido, one name only folks, are available, like, utterly, like mattered, like shoots hinged on that information. So it was a good, foundation in managing expectations.
And you were into fashion? You were into style? I
was into style. I certainly wasn't particularly into women's fashion, and that's why I just had this sense like I'm going to hit the wall here. I'm not going to be able to progress past a certain point because this is not really the medium that is speaking to me. But lo and behold, in 4 Times Square, the gourmet test kitchens were this kind of barely marked door right next to the library, and I was just desperate to know what was going on behind that door. I don't know if you're the kind of person who just like goes into a restaurant and just feels compelled to literally have to hold, you literally have to hold yourself back from just like sort of floating through the door.
You pegged me. I'm definitely the guy who is let's look in the kitchen and see how they're running the show.
Yeah, how it all comes together. And those old gourmet test kitchens, like these 6 or 7 funny little crappy New York kitchens strung together in a little horseshoe.
Yeah.
Okay. No natural light. But, just getting a peek into what was going on in there gave me this sense that, if I was working at a food magazine, how cool would that be?
So in 2010, you end up in culinary school. So you clearly had your eye on BA and gourmet, but you also wanted to get the skills. What's that transition like out of Vogue into the culinary school and then ending up at BA at 2011?
Yeah, my last year that I was at Vogue, I basically went to them because there's no way around just being upfront and just said, I would love to be able to transition to a magazine like Gourmet, stay in-house, which still existed at the time, and I went to culinary school at night and on my weekends at the French Culinary Institute, which now is folded in with ICE here in the city. But I heard you talk to Meredith Hayden about this.
Yeah.
It's like living that double life. Like I was in my chef's whites in cooking school with my BlackBerry buzzing away in my pocket with people like, where the hell's the girl? Like so-and-so like didn't show up. Can you track them down?
That's wild.
Et cetera, So after I finished school, I decided it was time for a clean break, and I went and worked in a fine dining kitchen and pretty much got my ass handed to me.
Let's talk about that. Okay, what's the kitchen?
I worked at Del Posto
for
about 3 months.
Okay.
And
Ladner, Brooks Ledley.
Yep. It was in that era.
Yeah.
They had just gotten their 4th star from Sam Sifton.
4th star.
It was
Italian for
the show.
Yeah.
And I got my ass kicked. And honestly, I think part of it was just it probably wasn't the right kitchen for me, as like my first hotline role,
Yeah.
But also, I had a hard time with the fact that I couldn't cook my way out of my problems. Like no degree of technical proficiency, even superlative skills in the kitchen were not going to save you from the absolute maelstrom that surrounded you every single day you were there.
Yeah. When you're in that kitchen and you're working the line, I mean, had you worked in restaurants at all, or was this like truly your first time?
This is truly my first.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
This is my first hotline, and listen, the place was what it was. It was a tough kitchen. I think just at the best of times, it was huge, 2 levels, incredible resources, but it wasn't the right kitchen for me, and I felt myself as a newly married man of 30. Making $8.50 an hour, trying to figure out where things were going, and it wasn't looking good. And I frankly, I washed myself out, and to this day, I feel a sense of failure about it that kind of stays with me.
Interesting.
Like to be honest, because I thought this was my moment to like put in a year or more, in professional kitchens before transitioning into food media. But it just didn't work out that way.
Well, you're obviously leaving a fully paying job to work the line.
You're sitting there
economics
asking,
just don't line up.
What you literally you had your kind of like your golden ticket from Vogue, and you cashed it in. Were you feeling that your chances of getting into food media were high, or were you kind of like... No, it was very unknown at this point.
Unknown.
Gourmet folded towards the end of my tenure at Vogue.
Yeah.
And Bon Appetit was still based on the West Coast at that time. There were certainly enough test kitchens around, but I didn't really have a foot in the door with that specific kind of work. I knew I needed hands-on cooking experience, but it wasn't clear where exactly I was going to get it from.
Did they train you in culinary school for test kitchen work at all? Did you feel like they had like a track for editorial at all?
Not at all.
That's so interesting.
So I parked myself at a catering company here in the city for, it was maybe 4 or 5 months. And lo and behold, I hear Bon Appetit is relocating from the West Coast to the East Coast to basically occupy that same kitchen that I was so curious about. Used to be maintained by Gourmet. And I get a call from Hunter Lewis, who is now the editor-in-chief at Food and Wine. And he needs somebody who can literally come in the next day.
That's incredible.
To start putting the kitchen together, because Gourmet they didn't even pack anything up. They just sort of walked out and that was it. So the kitchen hadn't been touched in years. Pans, pots, stuff was everywhere. All those 7 little, New York galley kitchens needed to be set up and operational. Because, we had to sort of hit the ground running. And at first I thought it was just going to be a freelance thing. But Hunter, based on, 1 or 2 days working with him, he offered me the kitchen assistant role. And that's when my culinary education really began.
Let's go there. I mean, when it's going to be your early years working as an assistant. I mean, this is a role that at the time and currently that you lead is very demanding. There's a deadline every hour working in a test kitchen for editorial. And at that time when BA is moving over to the East Coast, there's clearly a cultural change happening in the magazine too. So you're like thrown in the middle of this as somebody who obviously knew editorial working at Vogue and you knew the way that Condé works, but you didn't know how BEA was going to be crystallized. And really, Chris, you were there from the start of this New York existence of BA, which is an incredible spot to be in just for the history of the publication you work at.
Yeah, knowing how Condé worked, honestly, was a massive asset beyond
Yeah.
what I could have ever dreamed. The cooking skills ultimately came, right? So as a kitchen assistant, I was running around the city. I was shopping. Back then, we were hand shopping a lot of items every single day. So we were going to Autuminelli for meat or Florence, meat market. We were going uptown to Esposito if we needed something, I don't know,
Yeah.
like a lot of something.
35th Street Esposito?
Oh, yeah,
Love
yeah,
that
yeah.
spot. Yeah.
That place. And, I was going to the Chelsea market, to go to the Manhattan Fruit Exchange all the time, the lobster place, and then schlepping everything back. And I was in heaven.
Yeah.
I was in heaven because for the first time in my culinary career, it felt like I was truly learning about food from the inside out, from the ground up. And Hunter was a really kind and patient leader. He had certain expectations. He wanted the kitchen run in a certain way, which was, I would say, like more rigorous, than I think most test kitchens are. Like he wanted you in there in a jacket, squared away to what your task was, kind of operating at a certain level. But within that, it was a really great group of people. Janet McCracken, who went on to work at Rachel Ray, Mary Frances Heck, was kind of in charge of the test kitchen then, and then Kay Chun. Kay was really the person who taught me how to develop a recipe. And those early days were wild because there was no process for anything. Adam Rappaport, the former editor-in-chief, was really clear. He didn't want to bring in any of the content, that had been earmarked for future issues. We were starting from absolute scratch, right? He wanted new POV, new photography, new everything, but we had to figure out all those processes.
What's the remit from the top in terms of recipe development when you're trying to really change the way home cooks think about food? And I think very successfully, BA recipe development was able to really get into the head of real home cooks. I give you a lot of credit for that era and that switch under Rappaport and many others. That you cracked a code, and we saw the results in the cookbooks we publish here online today. You should be given a lot of credit for the work you did at that time.
I mean, certainly wasn't my work. I mean, I was literally running around. Yeah, no, I mean, but the team of people that existed there were phenomenal, like really, truly phenomenal cooks. I mean, Kay Chun had a restaurant. She had been at Gourmet. She was an absolute pro. And Mary Frances, same thing. She had spent time in professional kitchens. She knew what she was doing, from a recipe perspective. And Hunter, his POV coming from Saveur was very home cook focused. I will say, in those days, we got away with doing a lot more just in terms of getting a little bit chefy with our recipes, our techniques.
I mean, everyone did that, though. That's
everyone
kind of
did. I mean, I feel like, fast forward to more recent, kind of years, days, weeks, whatever. It's like everything's got to be the simplest, the easiest, the fastest. That was not necessarily the case back then.
Let's zoom towards the modern day. I want to. We could talk about your career over the years at BA, but I really want to get into the modern test kitchen right now, and just tell us a little bit about how you lead the test kitchen and like the work that goes into each issue, and then all the online, and then the social, and then the social video, and all the demands of this kitchen. And we've had many of your colleagues on the show, but I've never had you on here. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the first time ever, after years of talking about it, we're truly platform agnostic in the way that our ideation and a lot of our production processes work.
I was wondering about that.
So a lot of it is it's idea first. Does it make sense? Is there an angle to be pursued? And then you figure out, okay, how does this live in print? How does it live in digital? The thing that prevented us from getting there sooner is the print processes, as are rigid, right? Like the deadline to ship things to the printer is immutable. So those processes had to be 100% dialed in and fixed. Whereas with digital, things can slide around. Publication dates can change. Packages can be pushed forward or backward. So that's a really interesting place to be because it's meant that the way we do our work is so different. But the core, the team in the kitchen, Jesse and Shilpa and Kendra and Hannah and Inez, people are still, just thinking about like, okay, how do we connect with what the ideas that are taking shape in edit? How do we bring ideas of our own? How do we make sure they can live their best selves across these platforms?
Do you guys have a pitch meeting?
Oh gosh,
often. I mean, are you thinking? Are you just like spitballing ideas? Like, how does that work in terms of the ideation? Because that's an interesting part. Because you think about you got to go 3-4 months in the future, or even longer, and you got to like have it be original. And there's so much competition right now.
For every month, there is like an all-staff sort of set of brainstorm sessions.
Nice.
When you can bring anything, like finished ideas that you want workshopped. But before that, my team always meets and does a much more informal brainstorm just to see what ideas are percolating.
Yeah.
Often it's just a chance to kind of, I don't know, intervene is too strong a word, but to start to influence people's ideas so that they can really take shape in those bigger kind of ideas meetings. So because I think you have to be led by, the passion for what you feel for an idea, right? And everybody on the team, has had the opportunity to pursue ideas and watch them take shape. Sometimes it is a little bit of a dance, right, with the rest of the editorial teams.
Yeah, and like you want to have balance, right? That's like the biggest thing about putting out an issue. And you had to think about the timing of seasonality, cultural balance. I mean, it's a lot of work that goes into those informal meetings and the big brainstorms. I mean, are there like hurt feelings sometimes? I mean, are there are there emotions?
There certainly are. I mean, listen, like I think it's the friendliest it's ever been.
Sure.
I think it's
get that
the
vibe.
most empathetic it's
I
ever
talk
been.
to people at your team. It's a good vibe there right now.
Yeah, but but there's still like you believe very strongly in your POV, right?
Yeah.
And you want to argue for it, but you also have to know the moment to let it evolve, right?
Yeah.
To adapt it so that again it can kind of go on and take shape. Yeah, I mean, people. I don't mind people advocating for themselves.
Yeah, of course.
I respect that fully.
I mean, editorial is always that way. You have to
Yeah.
advocate for yourself. What's the last week been like? Just like take us there. Like, what are you working on?
Oh my gosh, we're starting on Thanksgiving, believe it or not. This is maybe the earliest we ever have. We're also working on best new restaurants. So right now we're talking to chefs at a short list from the bigger list, whose recipes we think might translate really well to the home cook space. But for the last few years running, we've gotten the chefs in question on the phone and we've actually talked to them about what goes into some of those dishes that are on our short list, from each place, just so that we know what we're getting ourselves into. We don't want to commit to something without knowing the nitty gritty.
That's really, really fun to get a restaurant chef on the horn.
Oh,
and be like, hey, like take me through your process. Take me through your lob. Take me through your bolognese. Take me that's the best.
Because it's all in the details. Right.
Yeah.
And, obviously, in years past, we would not tell them that they had made the BNR list. We were doing a very convoluted dance conversation.
You may be in the issue.
Yeah.
We'd like a long list of stuff.
Strongly considering you for a fall issue.
Okay. You wouldn't even
a knowing wink.
Yeah.
But so, we're sort of screening recipes with chefs right now. We're about to turn people loose on Thanksgiving assignments. And sometimes, the Thanksgiving directives might even just start out, in terms of the ideation around, okay, this year, coming out of the pandemic, there was a lot of sort of negative sentiment around Thanksgiving in a funny way because I think people's traditions had evolved in the pandemic. They could be much more intentional about what traditions they were carrying forward. The sort of the rise of Friendsgiving, et cetera, like spending time with your chosen family. And so sometimes we're just kind of leaning into what is the vibe, this year. And for the last few years, we're really kind of leaning into positivity. This is the cook's holiday. This is your culinary Olympics. This is a time of year when everybody is thinking about food, but specifically making food, not just
consuming. The highest challenge. I know the Times is always thinking about Thanksgiving. You're always thinking about it, Food and Wine, Saveur, and plenty of digital publications. And I've worked on publications with more of a Thanksgiving cooking angle. And come August, come May, we're recording this in May, it's challenging to get excited about this holiday, right? I'm projecting my own take. You have to every year have a new take on this old thing. Do you feel that? Do you feel that emotion, that challenge to make it new and special every year?
I do. I do, and honestly, that's why working with people, like the
Yeah.
idea of being like a solo creator and having to face that challenge like year after year would feel very daunting to me. Being with a team of people and being able to be collaborative in how we execute that content goes a long way. I have to say, as often as you might find yourself saying seemingly to the world through the platforms of BA or Epicurious or what have you, please use a dry brine for your turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, there was my Uncle Steven last year being like, so what's the deal with this dry brine? Only took him 15 years of us shouting this from the rooftops, right? For that one facet of how to make one iconic Thanksgiving dish, so I have to stay humble in terms of just because you think you've covered something, you know what? Like that information is new to somebody. And if you can convince them, if you can hold their hand, if you can help them execute it for themselves so they see the benefit of what you're talking about, honestly, you will have a convert for life.
I feel the same way. I feel like you have to always preach basics with these things because we take for granted that the audience sometimes, doesn't know about like anything. Like
new people are coming in all the time.
New people to younger people who've never hosted Thanksgiving, who had their family cook it or they went to restaurants and then this is the first time and they go to BA and they're like, how do I, what turkey, what?
Right, and what do you have to give them? What do you have for them as a resource?
Yeah. Give me like, this is a tough one, but I think you can. Give me like the truly most annoying recipe, the most tedious, the most, I would say, protracted recipe development process that comes to mind.
For me, it's the dishes I did that were for iconic, known foods.
Yeah.
Like great example, BA's best chocolate chip cookie. Like what a phenomenal responsibility to have to develop a recipe for something so iconic. So first step, you have to do your due diligence. You need to go out and you need to figure out what are the top performing other 5 or 6 recipes, and you need to cook every single one and see what's really worthwhile about each one, if anything. Surely there will be positive attributes, but you have to see that for yourself. Step 2, formulate your own idea about what this thing is. Start baking, see what people think, get feedback from a whole host of sources. Keep iterating and iterating. Certain things like should flaky sea salt be on BA's best chocolate chip cookie can turn into a conversation that lasts for weeks amongst the staff.
Yeah.
Because as that little flourish of Malden or Jacobson salt, that is not necessarily a back pocket reflex for a lot of cooks, despite what you might think from hanging out in New York City for many years.
For the record, is that in the recipe?
It is not in the recipe.
Okay, so it didn't even make it. Yeah,
I did hand chopped chocolate.
Yes,
I did 2 yolks and 1 whole egg, just for, again, like I'm more of like a savory. Somebody who craves a lot of savory even in my sweet.
Yeah.
So I want an intentional amount of salt in the cookie, right? But just a flourish of sea salt, I just think for some person out there, it's going to be an excuse not to make it.
Yeah, and when you're talking about a wide audience, and it can't just be the coastal trends and the hip bakeries, you gotta recognize that audience.
100%.
What about just like working through process to get something like right that was feeling daunting? It was like
for that or for something else?
Just as something else that because I'm hearing that the chocolate chip cookie part is just getting the best one, which is a huge burden. But what about just like a technical, something that just wouldn't work? Too many.
Oh man.
I see your eyes.
So many. Well, no, because a lot of recipes start out as what if.
Yeah.
What if? What if there could be like what's this breakfast cookie trend? Yeah. Let's do a morning glory breakfast cookie and let's not put any refined sugar in it. Well, I mean, are you freaking kidding me? There's a reason that there's sugar in every single cookie recipe you've ever cooked. We figured it out. I figured it out with a lot of, bunch of maple syrup, but I had to like basically write an article explaining, like I literally did this thing 13 times.
Yeah.
And I think we got to a pretty good place, but sometimes you are trying to make something happen on a technical level that simply doesn't want to obey.
Yeah, it's a great example, and I've been seeing that trend everywhere too.
Yeah.
That's a good one to tackle.
This is one that I did for Healthy-ish, our sort of former brand, kind of focused on, kind of like whatever, feel good cooking. And, so we're always asking those questions.
Liza Barbanel, former editor.
Well, yeah, gosh, of course.
Co-host of the show.
Why am I telling you
Shout
this?
it out, yeah.
Yeah, I work with Eliza on so many Healthy-ish, bits of content and recipes. And, she gets it. She was there for a lot of that.
Wasn't it great working with Eliza?
Oh, she's honestly, she's like one of those people who I'm like, one day you're literally going to fire me because you're going to be like, Chris, like, sorry, we just don't need you anymore, because like she's just like so phenomenally competent.
Yeah.
And, she was like so junior and yet like had such a gifted editorial voice.
Yeah.
And it was there from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I love collaborating with Liza on features and, of course, on the podcast. Such an editorial talent.
Yeah,
I fully agree.
100%.
We have to take a little a side break and talk about coffee. It's a micro theme on the show. We definitely talk about it. We've had plenty of coffee folks on, and I just love seeing in your highlights. And I know from talking to people in the industry, because they've been up to the test kitchen from coffee companies, because they love talking to you about coffee. What are you drinking these days, and what's the fascination in coffee for you?
Oh, God. Coffee makes me so happy. It's like a warm hug for your palate. It's the thing that literally pries me out of bed in the morning. I go to sleep thinking about it, not because I want to drink phenomenal quantities of it, but just the way that perfect cup or two through my day hits. It fills a mug-shaped hole in my heart. That is how it feels for me to drink it. Thinking about the nuances of all of the savory complexities of coffee, I once made the mistake of just like sharing tasting notes with a friend in front of my wife, and she's still giving me a hard time for talking about the quote unquote angles, of what I was drinking. When like coffee is like very rounded and very like, plush and soft, and when it's like much more focused and sharp. The same terminology applies to wine. It's just, these are the conversations I could spend all day having.
Like you look at like Central American coffees versus East African or West African coffees.
Oh, sure.
And that roundness versus that sharpness, naturally processed, of course. You could talk about that, which puts you into a whole nother ballgame. But I love thinking about shapes in coffee, because I agree that certain terroirs and regions express in different ways.
For a long time, I was super into natural processed coffees. I've backed off that slightly.
Me too.
But I think that, the ability to recognize really distinct, focused fruit flavors in coffee, like sometimes those show up very clearly in natural processed coffees. They like you will taste like peach that you're experiencing as though like 1,000 volts of electricity are just coursing through it. Coffee people usually tend to prefer, coffee industry people, I should say, tend to prefer clean, sweet, like washed coffees.
Yeah, exactly.
Where subtlety kind of reigns. But Philly, I'm spoiled. I'm so spoiled. Like Poem Roasters, Blind Tiger coffee roasters. This guy Charlie does such a great job roasting for my local cafe Rally, which I love. Rival Brothers. I get my coffee from Ox. These days I'm craving stuff that's a little bit darker. I wouldn't call it dark roast.
Yeah.
But
more
something
mature.
a little mature, a little bit more kind of chocolate, toasted nut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been preferring washed recently. I think I burned out on naturally processed coffees during the pandemic when I just bought everyone I could find. But I agree. It's all about the roasting, right? It's all about the roasting.
Totally.
And if you get the roaster who does it responsibly, it does electrify your palate.
It does. And I think that some of those like natural processed coffees are still so interesting to taste.
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, like wine is the best analogy for me. It's like you will taste flavors that feel almost outside the spectrum of like the known universe, for your palate.
What's your setup at home?
I am the only person who drinks coffee at home, so I do V60 pour over for myself every morning.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, that's what you got to do. Like,
that's it.
V60 pour over, get the gram scale, you get your extraction.
Oh yeah.
Sort it out.
We're weighing. Sorry.
Yeah,
I thought that was like just assumed.
No,
we're weighing.
Yeah.
It's like
I've been playing around with extraction though. I feel like I've been doing
the ratio.
Yeah, I have been. I've been putting more coffee. I've been increasing my dosage recently, and just seeing.
Do you take milk or sugar, or do you drink black?
I always drink it black.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I take milk, and I'm proud.
Fair. I mean, listen, fair.
Again, but that additional kind of plushness and roundness, milk is kind of like it's smoothing everything out for me.
I like milk as an after if I'm doing a second cup. I think for morning, from like the first thing to hit my palate, I'm definitely always just tasting it, out of always just as the way God intended in many ways. I see an incredible value in adding dairy or non-dairy to coffee at different periods in the day. And I've been milking tea recently.
Oh, nice.
That's been a thing, which I know is like not cool. I put on Graham and I got some comments, but have you had your tea era yet?
You do you.
Yeah.
I think teas are fascinating.
Yeah.
I think as I get a little bit older, I can't drink just like cup after cup of coffee. It's just a lot for your system to take more than a couple cups a day. But tea is just endlessly fascinating to me.
Chris, no cookbook. I feel like.
Oh, I know.
I know we got to talk about this.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
I know. And like, it's interesting because you mentioned your colleagues, and I feel like nearly all of them have cookbook deals or are doing cookbooks or have done cookbooks. And like, obviously, you've had the opportunity to write a cookbook, but you haven't yet. And are you waiting for the moment? Are you just not interested because you have your day job?
Yeah, it's not that I'm not interested. I'm just actually really busy, and I know how much work goes into writing a cookbook, and perhaps seeing so many friends and colleagues do them, I know a little too much about how much goes into
that. Will do it to you.
Yeah, and I and I've got like still a relatively young family at home. I enjoy my nights and weekends to be with them. I also, I support my wife and her career, and if I'm tied up on certain weekends, working through recipes for a cookbook, she's got to work that weekend. Like what do we even do at that point? I mean, listen, like these are all details that I could figure out. But I also just think there's something usually very solitary about pursuing a cookbook, just in terms of executing those recipes on your own time. I'm so used to, and frankly, just so love being surrounded by phenomenal cooks. I don't know what I would do without
them.
Really,
you don't know what you would do.
I know, but it's better when they're there.
No, but you're not saying. I mean, I feel like there's got to be a concept broadly that you would, given, of course, I recognize the family life and balance, and that's great. And to hear, and it's important. Let's just take that out of the equation.
Okay.
No, like you have the time.
Gone.
I mean, there's got to be an idea or an instinct or a direction to go in, because publishing so well as well.
The thing that endlessly fascinates me is dinner.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not to eat whatever. That's like probably the most glaringly obvious thing. Mirasota scooped me with her most recent cookbook, which I absolutely love. But it's dinner. I want to know what you want to cook when you go home from work tonight. I want to know, and I want to, be part of that conversation, because this is something that I'm still figuring out for me, right? Like having kids, whose palates are highly idiosyncratic, having a home that's like mostly gluten-free and mostly red meat-free. I mean, this is a puzzle I am solving every single night.
Yeah. I feel like you'd have a new take on dinner, maybe when that time comes, because of your experience and just dinner through the eras.
It's something I would love to do.
Cool.
I mean, I love employing like ingredients with huge flavors. I like borrowing from different influences, using things in, kind of unconventional ways. I think people, once they understand the power of, the ingredients they can have at their disposal, I think like there's so many amazing shortcuts to eating really well, but doing it in a smarter way.
We're having this event on July 23rd. I want to plug it here.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
You're going to be out of town, but Jesse and Shilpa will be on stage with us at the Bell House. Incredible lineup. Tell us about the BA section of the program. I'm so thrilled that that BA is joining this event. I think it's going to be such a fun evening.
Yeah, like as a bunch of your listeners will know, Shilpa and Jesse started Bake Club, earlier, I guess like late 2024. And, Shilpa came to us with this idea a couple of years ago, just basically how do you engage the bakers out there? How do we find the bakers amongst our audience members and really speak to them and find ways to, start conversations with them? And Bake Club has been phenomenal because, we see time and time again, being able to peg certain recipes to, like a broader theme, whether it's Feel Good Food Plan, whether it's fourth trimester, whether it's Bake Club, the audience loves kind of like having some sense of like what they're going to get every month. So Shilpa and Jesse have done such a great job with their recipe lineups, with taking listener questions and creating an audio experience for Bake Club. And recently we just had our first live event for Bake Club at One World Trade.
Cool.
They did a hands-on afternoon tea with scone making, and they made
You're getting the readers in the building.
Oh,
Love
no,
that.
I know, which we hadn't done for a while, but something so small and intimate, it was like 15, ticketed, some attendees, and we had such a great time.
It's great. I can't wait to have them join the stage. The theme is Stay Cool. We're going to talk about maybe some summer baking on the stage. Well, I won't be there. It'll be those guys doing a live episode of Bake Club. So.
Yeah, Shilpa was already noodling on, kind of what that theme might mean to them.
It's going to be a blast. That's July 23rd. I wanted to just close and ask you, Chris, like, where do you want to be in 5 years with your career? I feel like you're so involved in all BA cooking elements, and it's an exciting time in media right now. Really exciting time. Where do you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like part of why I haven't done a cookbook yet is I've really been focused on helping shape the next generation of food editors, both within BA and outside the brand too. And, just helping people along in their journeys. I certainly hope in the next 5 years I will have gotten that first cookbook done. I frankly hope to be where I am, and just sort of, helping evolve what BA is and how it exists, as a print product, as a digital product, as audio experience, video experience. I truly love, being there. And, but I also fantasize about taking, getting one of those like €1 houses in Italy and decamping for a few years,
I feel you on that. What about like a restaurant? Would you consider opening a restaurant?
I think I probably know a little bit too much in the bad sense to open a restaurant, but I feel like there's nonetheless like so many people are in that position and they go ahead and they do it anyway.
Yeah.
My wife and I joke that like it would be fun to have like, some kind of creative space that's like part cafe, part home store, maybe a place where I could do, kind of like cooking classes, kind of community building, something like that could be really cool. And I think sometimes it's just like you find the right space, and that sort of dictates like what, kind of what the program is.
Yeah. Have you been to Binding Agents yet? The cookbook store in Philly?
Yes.
Isn't that great?
So close to my house.
Oh, cool.
And it's one of those things in Philly, like I just walked by one day, I was like, what is this?
I know, right.
It is such a beautiful jewel box of a space with the loveliest people.
Really is.
And it's just one of about like 50,000 things that I just think is so phenomenal that's going on in Philly right now.
I love that you moved there. I had no idea until you walked in the studio.
Yeah.
Such a great city. Binding Agents, great store. I had to plug them. Chris, on This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire, fast and furious taste check. Are you ready?
I am ready.
The best fruit?
A peach.
Where was it when you had it, the best one? Where were you?
Oh, I mean, standing over the sink every time, but like a peach in season, I like pears like hoved into view in my mind, but like now it's a peach. Sorry, pear.
The
Sit
worst
down.
vegetable?
Parsnip.
Have you developed a recipe that works with parsnip?
Absolutely not, because it can't be done.
It's banned.
Yeah, I honestly get furious thinking about the flavor of a parsnip. Cloying, like mutant carrot with like nothing to recommend.
With nothing else to
Woody,
add.
Can't eat it raw.
Let me ask you, we have banned words, like we just won't run them. I'm sure you have banned words too. Are there banned ingredients in the BA test kitchen?
There's no real banned ingredients.
Okay.
But people know, like, they'll do something involving a banana and like kind of like nervously look over at me because they know like it's kind of like one of my demon ingredients.
I mean, bananas challenge. I was talking to Ham Oelia recently on an episode, and we were talking about pairing lobster bananas and Brussels sprouts at WD-50. I was like, my God, that sounds intense.
Gosh,
It was like
but if anybody could do it,
yeah,
if anybody could do it.
It was likely, I'm sure, incredibly delicious. It was like a banana kimchi, actually.
Oh, wow.
I know, wild, right?
See, like things like peanut and banana, I need savory.
Yeah.
If you go sweet with either, you lose me.
Yeah.
God help me with chocolate with either.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, you go savory, strong flavors, right? Because peanut, banana, these are such huge flavors, but you need things that match them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could go in a time machine and have that dish. What's your typical breakfast?
It is coffee and buttered toast with jam, preferably from London Borough of Jam, my favorite jam company.
That's the guy. I don't know that brand.
It's so good. It's a little bit expensive, but a little goes a long way.
Yeah.
And they do. I'm a little bit of a skeptic about kind of culinary jams, you know, like combining savory flavors in your jam. However, they do things like apricot with muscovado sugar.
Sounds cool.
Rhubarb with cardamom, and it's always a light hand.
That's nice when the spice is not overpowering. Sometimes you go to the farmer's market and it's like way too much. Do you bake bread? Do you have a bread practice?
I don't have a bread practice.
Yeah.
I don't bake enough at home. I find it's like a headspace thing. The kids get involved. Flour starts flying everywhere, and before you know it, things like go sideways, and you haven't even like made dinner yet. You know,
it takes up a lot.
Yeah, I would love to build out more of like a baking kind of hobby. I'm just not there yet.
Not there yet. I get it. I'm the same way. I've been thinking about getting into a bread practice. But it's.
I did it in the pandemic, and it was fulfilling along with everybody else.
Yeah.
Had my sourdough, did my thing, and I was kind of like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah.
But I am also surrounded by incredible bread all the time.
I know.
I'm really lucky.
That's
it's
the
not
thing.
something I have to do myself.
Yeah. What about Mighty Bread? Do you go there?
Oh, I get bread from Mighty Bread all the time. I also go to High Street, which started in Philly. I get their bread from the farmer's market, which is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just lousy with great examples. Also, like Majdal Bakery just opened up a brick and mortar just down the street from me. Their bread is just like, it's $7 and improbably delicious, just like so many other Philadelphia institutions that are just quietly overperforming. I can't get enough of it.
It's amazing. And Mighty Bread, hands down, best cherry pie I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
it was
I gotta
like,
check that out.
It was like late season. It was like It was really like late season cherry pie. It was so great. On that note, the best dessert.
It's chocolate cake.
Yeah.
I tried to come up with something like more clever or whatever. It's chocolate cake. Don't reinvent the wheel. I was so delighted to see like chocolate cake kind of come back onto dessert menus recently, like Claude, like their 6-layer, sort of like stunner. That is one that I've loved. But I love making chocolate cake. I've developed chocolate cake recipes. I mean, it's just something that I just adore.
A restaurant you wish you could bring back from the dead.
Gosh, I could go so many different directions. I think it's Prune.
Yeah.
I never went there.
What
was I doing, Matt? Where
Not
was
even
I?
Brunch?
No.
You didn't wait in line?
Like Gabrielle, such just like a titan. I blew it. I utterly blew it. I never got there. I can't even guarantee that I would have loved it. It's more just like such an idiosyncratic restaurant that needed to be experienced in its time.
You can buy it out. Apparently, that's what the business is.
That's
now.
what I've been hearing.
People
have been seeing some activity in there and kind of wondering what's going on.
Good for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, why
pivot
not?
out of restaurants to private dining and your beautiful idiosyncratic space. That's the way to do it. When you're craving fast food, what's the move?
All right, I don't eat that much fast food. I recently tried that blue drink from Taco Bell and was like, what is this?
Wow.
It's like flat Sprite, but like not even as good as flat Sprite. I go for like falafel.
Yeah.
Like Goldie, falafel in Philly is maybe like sort of where I'll go. The tahini shake with a falafel sandwich, like every topping they have, I'm in heaven.
Goldie is truly a national treasure. I love that place.
I mean, the things that Mike Solomonov has done is just tremendous. From like Laser Wolf, like Federal Donuts, Zahav, which is I still haven't been to, and is like also top on my list. Oh yeah, I've been to Kafar many times.
Place is good. Yeah.
Love that place.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Philly, you have all of them in Philly. We only have half of them here.
Yeah, right.
In New York.
Yeah, maybe you'll get a few more.
Maybe it'd be great. It'd be great. A few more. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Boring, obvious, but true. Paris.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like that is a city I've had a relationship with for many decades of my life. I've known it as a single person living there, like for a year in college. I've known it, kind of many years since then.
Working at Vogue magazine.
Well, yeah, like working at Vogue, and it's a city where my wife and I have spent a good bit of time. So like Paris, there's just always something incredible to discover. I just find it so gratifying. This isn't true exclusively about France or anything, but a place where everybody's thinking about food.
Yeah.
Like seemingly all the time. Everybody cares. Everybody cares about the baseline level of quality of what's surrounding them. That I really enjoy.
Last one, your favorite sandwich?
It's the veg classic from Court Street Grocers.
Yeah.
I think, or it's we'll give
you two. You got it.
Oh God, it's the one from Middle Child. It's the Shopson Club. They do their house-made pickles, very thinly shaved. It's like Cooper Sharp cheese, lots of mayo, house roasted turkey, gorgeous bacon on this like beautiful sort of focaccia loaf ciabatta thing. Oh my gosh, it's perfect.
And that's Middle Child in Philly.
Middle Child in Philly.
And they do a Shopson's tribute?
Yes,
that's
they
so
do.
Cool. That's what that is.
They're very cool.
Yeah, I've never been. I've heard plenty about Middle Child.
It is so fun, just up the street from me.
Well, Chris Morocco, this has been tremendous. Thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
This Is Taste is hosted and produced by Eliza Barbanal and me, Matt Rodbard. The show is edited by lead producer Clayton Gumbert and supervised by Pat Stango, Director of Media Production and Development at Penguin Random House. Thanks to Shalia Harris and the production team at Penguin Random House. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Logo and guest illustrations by Ellie Skurzat. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all cool things in the world of taste.